Many individuals wonder or are confused by the countless examples of failure in African society. Today, so many dictators, so many tyrants, so many corrupt politicians, um, conflicts between militants and police and the military in countries all across Africa. We wonder why, why is this destruction, this calamity always present in Africa? The answer to me is very simple. And sadly, because of essentially propaganda from Western societies, I didn't understand this much earlier. It's an obvious answer, but because of propaganda, it's not easily understood. So, African societies, Africa, the continent, entire continent, was was invaded, subjugated by European powers. Um, these European powers were in the middle of the Industrial Revolution. Now, some claim that Europeans went to Africa to aid in the construction of African society, but what they really went to Africa to do was extract mineral wealth, resources to fuel their growing economies, to fuel their factories so that they could produce goods and compete with other European nations. Um, Obviously, if these African countries were um, basically the modern, the equivalent of modern day oil fields, um, we joke about America being hungry for oil and willing to overthrow countries for oil, but resources. Oil is just a resource, and it's resources that countries are willing to subjugate others to obtain. And Africa was essentially in the position that oil rich countries are in today. Um, you cannot allow a strong leader to arise in Africa. You cannot allow the populace to become educated enough to seek to overthrow. What these European countries wanted most was control. And they got that. They got that during the occupation of Africa. And they got that after independence was achieved. They got that by installing dictators, puppets to keep the to keep African countries from siding with Soviet Russia, or the Soviets wanted African countries to avoid siding with Americans because again, African countries sit on a shitload of value, of wealth, and because of this meddling, um, the conflict has been drawn out. Now, when European nations came to Africa, they divided Africa up um, with arbitrary lines, regardless of what tribes were where, what conflict was between what tribes. Lines were drawn. People were forced to live amongst each other. Now, at the end of a gun, people can be forced to live together. But if mock civility is forced on people, if people aren't steeped in a culture of unity. They just appear to be steeped in a culture of unity. Then when the shackles are taken off, conflict will arise. Logically, things will have to be settled. Countries will be broken apart. Death will occur. Now, you will have individuals at the top during this period who are tasked with keeping the country together. But there was another country. It was just a site for extracting materials. A state created to extract resources. It's not a state with the civilians at the forefront of its mind. So, of course, the civilians are not going to care about the state. And the state is not going to care about the civilians. The civilians are going to wage war against the state. The state is going to wage war against the civilians. The states are going to wage war against each other. Now, eventually, things will settle down. But we first have to see the creation of an actual, authentic spirit of unity. Not unity, an idea of unity forced on people because Europeans made some arbitrary marks in the sand. Actual unity. Unity, a sense of unity forged from blood. Africans will have to come together organically. They'll have to learn to value their society organically. You can't bring these people to the war. They'll come on their own. As was the case everywhere else that artificial states have been created. Conflict arises where people are forced together, tied together, and politicians are placed upon them. Now, the biggest goal for Africa in this century should be unity, appreciation for the state, understanding of how your neighbors, the state, is valuable to you, because most Africans have a tribal mentality, because there was not a state 100 years ago. So most have a tribal mentality, because their tribe comes first. Their tribe comes first. The politicians think likewise, which is why they take part in corruption so much. If I have no sense of unity, why not be corrupt? Unity and appreciation for fellow civilians is what must be achieved for Africa to succeed, and it's what will be achieved. There's nothing wrong with Africa. There's nothing wrong. It's just placed in a position which results in certain consequences that could be predicted. For instance, the Rwandan genocide. Anybody could see that forcing one class of people one group of people, one ethnic group, to rule over another class of natives with you know, with no reason. That would eventually result in genocide because people take advantage of their circumstances, their status. And there would be maltreatment. So you take one group, place it in power over another group, and that group will maltreat the group beneath them. No, when the colonizers leave, there's no gun pointed in the heads of those artificially placed beneath the feet of another group. Common sense tells you that there will be bloodshed. It's commonsensical. 1 + 1 = 2.